Hello, welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to focus on the development of the Spring Boot framework using the Java programming language. So in Spring Boot, before you start a project, you have to first initialize the process, your project. So now we have the Spring Boot initializer. So we're going to use our Marvin build dependency and then use our Java. And then I've already have the default. So I set this up already. So we're going to work with 4 dependencies because just a simple project. We're going to use the Spring Data JPA. It's going to be used to persist data from our database and pass it to our controller, send it to the template. Then the Spring Team Leaf is going to be used as our template engine to render our templates. It's going to be retrieving data from our database through our controller class and then using our MySQL driver to connect MySQL local database to our program, and then we use a Spring Web that's going to help us to build all our web environments in MVC, Model View Controller, and other web annotations we're going to be using in our project. So let's generate this project. We're using Java 21. Let's generate this project. So now that our project, Spring Boot project, downloaded, let's check. And I'll download folder and then download reading this .zip. Let's unzip this file, this folder. So now we can close this and open our project with our IDE. For this demo, I'm going to be using the IntelliJ IDE. Reading list. Now it's building our project by downloading all the dependencies into our project, and then we can start right away. So while it's building, let's be creating our classes. So here we have our source file. In our source file, we have our main class where we have all our application. We have our reading list application. So here we use this package com.reading list to create new classes for our project. So what we want to do in this project is simply to give you a common functionality of the Spring Boot framework. How does it work? How do you retrieve data from your database and send them to the website? And how do you also insert data? But we're going to break this course into sessions. So this first session is going to be to focus on the retrieval of data from your database. This course will require you to have some previous knowledge of database management system like MySQL or SQL for short, so that you can be able to smoothly run along with the framework. So let's create our class. So our first class is going to be an entity class, book entity class. This class is going to be used to, as an entity class, are going to persist data or insert data into our database. So Spring provides all this framework where we just annotate using the entity annotation. Sorry. Using the entity annotation, this class automatically going to be defined as an entity or a table in our database. So let's give a name to our table. Use the table annotation. Table annotation. let's name this table books table, right? So we want to store the names of books, reading list. So the names of books are going to be TBL in our reading list. And so we need 4 attributes that are going to be about our book. So first attribute going to be the ID, long, the ID of our book. Obviously, each item will have a unique ID. So string the title of our book, and we should have the author of our book. The author of the book. And lastly, we have the year the book was published or written. So, it's a year. Let's just pass the year as an integer value. Maybe in the future we want to use it to perform some calculations, maybe. So just integer value. So that's a year. The data type. So now we just said our getter and setter methods are going to be used to retrieve data from our database. So we use this on a MacBook. We use Command N. For Windows users, we use Control N in 30J, and we'll be able to set the getters and set the method. Set for RD. For title. Command N. Getter and setter. For author. And lastly, for year. Okay, so we are done here. Lastly, what we need to do is to configure our ID with the ID annotation. So say at ID, at ID, and another annotation that's going to auto generate the ID of our table. So you say generated value, generated value, generated value, we have strategy, strategy generation type should be auto. Okay, so our book table is set with the book entity. Yeah, and we have our book table. So now let's create a repository that's going to persist. Create a repository. So there will be an interface. Let's say book repository. Book repository. The work of this repository is to extend the behavior of the JPA repository. So it's to extend JPA. So firstly we should annotate. Let's annotate. repository, and extend JPA repository. JPA repository. In a repository, we're going to pass the entity that we created, the book entity. So book entity, and then here I'm going to pass the data type of the RD, the long data type of the RD. So you see we have the entity, come down, we have entity. This is done. Let's create our controller quickly. Controller. Let's call it book controller. Book controller. So, so the work of this book controller is to serve as an intermediary between our entity class and our template, as we know of the model view controller module in software engineering. So this is the controller. So let's annotate the controller annotation. Controller. Now let's configure our repository to communicate with our controller. So it's a book repository. Create this in book repo. Book repo. And now let's get our get mapping. We're going to set up the mapping for our applications. So our template can easily have our mappings with the links and other functions of our application. So this is going to be our home page. So let's say, for example, it's going to be our index page. We could say index is going to be our index page. We say index.html. Then as our index page is our home page. So then we'll call it book list. Book list. Now let's create our method. We're going to use the model view. We're going to use model view to show our book. So we want to display our book. So we create a method called show books. We want to show the books that are in our database. So create a method called show book, and in this method we're going to have model view with a variable name NAV. Then create new model view. And now we pass the name of our view. So we're going to call this view book. Yeah. So it's a books. That's a book. And what we want to do now is we want to pass our book as a list. So we will need to import import from Java .ut. We just import list, and we use this list to create a list of our book entity. And let's call it book list. Book list. So the book list going to be pointing to a book repo. Book repo that find all on our database. So now we are able to retrieve all data from our database in the list. Then next thing we want to do is to add attribute. So we're going to say view that add attribute. So we're going to create a key to our attribute. We're going to call it books, and then just going to stick with book list. No. It's not a string. It's just book list. And here we can return energy. So we're going to get the data from our database to the repository, and then we pass that data to our template as a list. So now let's create our template. We call book HTML template. Call book.html. Static book. So let's get this. So now we have our bootstrap and our jQuery links to support our table. So let's create a table. And this table should be a class table. In this class, we're going to get a table head and a table body. So we're going to get a table head. Table head. The table head, we want to get a table row. In this table row, we want to have table head root. So we're going to have first day our ID of the table. Author. template that's going to render our books in a list. It's going to be in the tabular form. So we have our tables. This is going to be our table name field, or the column field for the table. So add the title, author, and year published. And respectively, in this order, we're going to have the book ID, we're going to have book title and book author and book year passed in these fields. So with no delay, we now have to configure the database. We have to configure the database. So we go to application.properties. In application.properties, we configure our database. Our username is development, and our password is password. 224. Now entity should be book. Okay. Book. This is how we configure in our application properties file. So now with this core in application properties file, we have our JDBC, localhost, and SQL port. We have the SQL driver connectivity as our data source class name and everything. So this is our Spring data source username. This is my username. You could have your own username. And this is my local password. So it's my local username, local password. Local username is development. My local password is password 1234. That's for my SQL. You could use any other database you want to use. You could use an embedded database like H2 database or any other database you would like to use. But I recommend use my SQL if you want to follow along with this course. That will help you to easily follow along the tutorial. So now I believe we have everything we needed. One last thing we need to do is to create. Let's close this. So now we will have to create that database, that database, the book database. We don't have it like this. So now let's create it. So before creating it, we will have to sign in MySQL. We'll sign MySQL. We're going to use that username we use. So you see development, right? We use development. So and then we use the password. As we said, password is password 224. And let's create our database. Create database. Book, right? With a capital B. Create database book. So now we are okay. Our database has been created, and then once we run our code, it's going to configure automatically. So now let's run our code. Let's say Spring put run. So now we run our code. and test our project. Let's see if it works or not. If it doesn't, then there should be an error somewhere. I'm sure everything should be okay, but let's see. Sometimes there might be oversight, so you are never too sure. Okay, so our program is running. So by default, your Spring project is going to default to localhost 8080 as your port. Localhost is going to run on localhost, and 8080 is the port by default. So you could change that port to any port you want to use, but this one will be going to default. So let's start to run our project. Yeah, now we have our program running. So let's try to add some data into let's try to add some data into our database and see how that displays for us. So just remember something. We needed to add. Let's add this heading. Let's add this heading. Let's say reading list. Reading list. Okay. So now we come back to our terminal, and then the break this project is running. Break the connection, and then let's populate our database. We have a database called book, and in that book we have. So let's use book. Let's use book. Use book. Now let's see our tables. So to show tables, TABLES, show tables. So you see our tables in our database. Let's populate our table. So let's say insert SERT, insert into table name, which is books underscore DBL, books table, and then we pass the values. So we have first our ID, and from our ID we have let's look at, okay, from our ID we have the title. From our ID we have the title. The title is a string, so we pass title of the book, from dust to prominence. From dust to prominence. Okay, this is a book written by my father. So author is and then now our year is an integer, so let's pass the year. Oh, sorry, 2021 as our year. Looks good to me. It's okay. Now we have passed data into our database. Let's see how that appears. So let's run it. Our program is running. Now we have data into our database. Let's refresh this. So we have title, author. Okay, so we have similar issue today. I'm just going to swap this. So we have data in our database, right? I'm just going to swap this and keep this as a structure. Let's play this straight here. Let's swap this. I mean, we could go back and reinsert the right way in our database, but I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to swap this. And because I'm seeing that title is in place of author and author is in place of title, so I can go back and reset that in my database, but I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to swap this and get the rightful output that I want. But this is how you retrieve data from your database, guys. So if you're following this course, this is about the end. Let's see. Let's rerun our code and see what happens now that we have. So see, simple, right? So we have the ID one, we have the author, organized by museum, we have the title of the book from birth to prominence, we have the year the book was published, 2021. So guys, this is how you render data from your database to your template in Spring Boot framework using your MVC model view controller module. And this is the end of this video. Thanks for watching.